Good afternoon or good morning from wherever you watch this webinar. Welcome to the Fleet Forum Wednesday webinar, where today Cyril will take us through how you can be the first fleet manager in introducing vehicle sharing in your context. The reason why I am here is because we have something new. For those of you who were already here the last webinar with Nikita. We are trying out translated captions, and in order for us to do that, we need to organize some things. So while we are waiting for people to join, I will set up the closed captionings if it works, because like I said, we are piloting, we are trying, we are testing something new. And then if you want to make use of that, you can use the instructions on the screen. So let me see if that works. Let's see. So far, no. But then we have another shortcut. Okay, I'm not sure if it works. I will hand over to Cyril, not because I don't want to lose more time. But what I will do in the background is I will continue to set it up, and then when I have done that, when I have been successful, I will let you guys know through the chat. So Cyril, I hand over to you, and I enjoy this webinar.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rose. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So welcome to the weekly webinar. As agreed, we will be looking into accelerating adoption of vehicle sharing by you fleet managers for the next 20 minutes. And of course, I want to leave space to your questions and comments. You can already, in the course of the presentation, use the chat to raise your comments and your interrogation around what I'm presenting. I want to start with taking a step back and insisting on why we are talking increasingly about vehicle sharing. The reason is that all our organization and the sector in general is looking at transitioning transport and mobility towards something more sustainable. What's the big problem that we have here is that most on the planet, most of the emissions linked to transport and mobility are really linked to the motorized vehicle system. So 15% of the global greenhouse emissions are linked to transport and mobility. And within that, although we hear a lot about the air transport, which is the reality in our sector, the massive part, 75% of the emissions are linked to the ground transport, namely to the passenger cars that we are using, but also the trucks. So it's really linked to land transport. As of today, on the planet, we account for 1.4 billion motorized vehicles. This number is planned to be doubling in the very next few years if we are not taking action. Of course, within those 1.4 billion vehicles, there are your vehicles. So you have a responsibility, you have a role to play here. What are the impact? What is the problem with the motorized vehicle system? Of course, we hear a lot, and you particularly, about the issue of the emissions, of the CO2 emissions. It's true, it's something that is very publicized and public. However, it's not the only issue. And even within the emissions, of course, we have the tailpipe emission, what is emitting by the car because of its internal combustion engine emissions, but more or less 50% of the emission of the vehicle are also linked to its weight because riding on the road resuspend materials. The tear and wear of the tires, the tear and wear of the brake pads are also having an impact that accounts up to 50% of the overall emission of a vehicle. Of course, Beyond emission, we have the issue of the waste, not only the waste that is generated by the use of the car itself. So of course, the preventative maintenance of the car, the oils, the batteries, all those elements, but also the end of life of a vehicle that has to be recycled or upcycled. The motorized vehicle require a big infrastructure to operate: roads, asphalt that needs to be redone regularly. Of course, the network of gas station and all that has an impact on environment, on biodiversity by segregating the natural spaces also, and it's an infrastructure that is permanently growing on the planet. It has an impact, of course, on resources that are scarce. Sorry, to produce a vehicle. It requires quite a number of minerals that are not infinite on the planet, and of course, to put in motion a vehicle, may it be internal combustion engine, but also electric, it requires some resources, and those, depending on the countries where you are operating, of course, are more available than in others. Then there is like a series of very, if I may say, social impact of the motorized system. Moreover, we see that in the countries where the higher level percentage of equipment in vehicles among the population, it's also countries where there is more and more an issue around public health, sedentarity, a lack of physical activity. The road safety is really to be mentioned, because naturally the more vehicles on the road increases mechanically the probability of having accidents. And of course, behind the motorized vehicle system, there is, if I may say, kind of segregation of access to transport. Having a car is, of course, more privilege against some share of the population on the planet that have to walk or to use sometime combination with public transport. So overall, the problem is, of course, environmental, ecological, but also social, and we shouldn't forget about this big challenge as they are intertwined. What are our levers of action to work on that and to accelerate transition to something more just and more fair? It's captured in the typology avoid, shift, improve, that basically classifies by order of impact, by order of importance, the leverage that are at our disposal to transition, mobility, and transport. The most impactful pillar of this typology is the avoid. It's basically how we look into changing our model of operation, reducing the number of kilometers that are driven, reducing the number of vehicles that are constituted in our fleet. It's followed by the shift, which is basically moving to some more environmental friendly modes. Into that, you can have accelerating, re-embracing the use of public transport or informal transport in the countries where we operate. Of course, carpooling and vehicle sharing, we will get into details now. And the active mobility, walking, cycling, scooter. And the last pillar is really about improving the energy efficiency of the vehicle. So here you will have on the category of fuel economy, you will have, for example, training the drivers on eco-driving. You will have purchasing vehicles that are smaller, less powerful, or more fuel efficient. You have the topic of the electric mobility, and of course the use of the renewable energy. So I insist on this big picture. We have a problem that is complex, and we have already available some leverage of actions that are classified in this typology. If you don't know this typology, you as a fleet manager really need to start implementing it on the ground. And we will get into the detail now of the carpooling and the ride sharing, because such a practice is directly feeding the most important pillar, which is avoid. By carpooling, we increase the occupancy rate of our vehicles. So potentially we need less vehicle to move our people to a certain location. And therefore we potentially need less vehicle, yeah. The benefits of vehicle sharing, there are multiples. I've captured the mains of core costs, because as of today, every organization functions with its own fleet, potentially going to the same direction, attending the same beneficiaries. Having a vehicle sharing scheme implemented allow to reduce the cost. We drive less kilometer, we have less assets in our fleet, we increase the occupancy rate of our vehicle. I've just mentioned the environment. Having less car on the road means less emissions and environmental impact generated. I didn't mention, for example, the noise as well, which is like a big consequence in urban setting of the number of vehicles that we have, and that also have an impact on public health. But also time and resources. In your case, as a fleet manager, if you have more resources pool, it means you have to dedicate less time and less energy to manage this fleet. All the back office, the tracking of the vehicle for safety and security. And as I mentioned, reducing the number of vehicles on the road mechanically reduces the probability of accidents. And that's not to be forgotten. I managed the project of the vehicle sharing with the Fleet Forum that we started a couple of years ago in Lebanon. This is really our blueprint to give you an idea of what we have achieved in 2 years, and so what potentially you can be achieving if you engage into that. We have achieved to share 12% of the movement that are acknowledged by the different agencies on board the project. You can see more or less as of today, we have 10 agencies. So 12% of the movement means that you have 12% of potential savings, economical savings, but also 12% of potential environmental impact reduction. As you can see, it's more of a marathon than of a sprint, but still you need to start. And I'm also here capturing how we are able with the data collection to track, per agency, per route, what is happening, what are the missed opportunities, with some time aligning departure time to one direction. Intercity is allowing to identify low-hanging fruit. So 12% has been shared, and we have identified that we have a further 11% of low-hanging fruit that we could easily share. So this figure is quite important because more or less it means that in a country like Lebanon, we have 24% of the movement, the mobility among 10 agencies that can be shared. 24% of potential savings and of potential environmental impact reduction. All the learnings from the Lebanon experience are available to you and to the broad public. We have, for those 2 years, developed some communication materials, some materials of staff sensibilization. Basically, we'll see now in the details that the big challenge of vehicle sharing is behavior change. And so we have some materials that exist. We have available to you and to the whole community some template of MOUs for the collaboration interagency, some minimum requirements, some benchmarking that we have done when you want to start this initiative to see what are the common practices between the organization. Some SOPs, we've just finalized the cost sharing model that is being endorsed by the project here, and the different roles and responsibility, how to get organized to start such an initiative. Also, different capitalization materials that are available, and all this I will share the link in the chat, is public online, so you could tap into that to make your first steps and initiate wherever you operate vehicle sharing interagency, but that can be also an inspiration to accelerate carpooling and pooling within your own organization. As a matter of fact, here in Lebanon, we are operating with ULO, the first humanitarian logistic cooperative, and we are replicating the initiative currently in Central African Republic. For those of you that are following this country or that are operating there, we are aiming those days at starting ride sharing on the Route Nationale 2. Towards Bambari, and ULO is also taking the lead on replicating this initiative in Iraq. So materials available, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use those materials and adapt it and start, tapping into that to initiate or contribute to existing initiative at your level. There are not only those schemes, there are also schemes that are more from the UN environment. I've captured here the UN Mobility and the UN Booking Hub, but also the UNHCR Smart Fleet project. Both initiatives are really looking at the same objective as the one we are pursuing in Lebanon between NGOs, and they are also aiming at accelerating acceptance of those projects within the countries of operation. So if you are working for UN agencies, you can reach out to Stefano or to Rowan, and they will be more than happy to put you in touch and to give you more information around what is being done in the numerous countries where UN agencies are operating, including on those schemes of ride sharing and carpooling. Now, why you should take action as a fleet manager? I have captured a list of reasons, but of course, the fact that you are around this in front of your screen today is already a very good sign that you have a personal interest in the topic. So, among the reasons why you should take action, of course, you are working for organizations that have taken very strong environmental commitment. If it's not done yet, it's in process for sure. Strong environmental commitment. As a reminder, most of the sector has taken the commitment to reduce its emissions, CO2 equivalent emissions by 50% within the next 6 or 7 years. So if we want those commitments to be achieved, it means that every single individual need to take action into that. Another illustration, because most of you, if not all of you, are belonging to organization members of the Fleet Forum. In the last summit of the Fleet Forum, there was a commitment taken by members, actually 70% of them, to actually accelerate adoption of vehicle sharing and ride sharing within their operations. So you can check with your reference or your colleagues at HQ. You are probably part of this commitment, and you will contribute to your organization commitment achievement. Another angle is that the sector, for all the reasons that I mentioned in the beginning, the challenge of environment, the resource scarcity is moving more and more from a fleet management, pure fleet management, towards mobility management. So basically, you as a fleet manager, you need to embrace both change. If not, you risk to be out of business in a while. That's a very important notion to keep in mind. Things are evolving, and more organizations, but also donors are promoting the sharing, the increased use of efficiency wherever it's possible. So that's becoming this shift from fleet management toward mobility management is on the move, and you'd rather not miss this train. Of course, you potentially have a personal interest in the topic of sustainability, and that's great. But that's also a sign for you to take leadership, because we need to accelerate change. Not everyone has this sensitivity, and we need to lean on the internal individual interest of people to accelerate that. Action is needed. I will insist on that. The strategies, the policies are important, but they need to be fed by action, so you need to engage into that. What are the common challenges that we are facing? As I mentioned, the biggest challenge of vehicle sharing is linked to behavior change. It's not linked to technical or technological issues. At least from the project that we have followed, it is the case. So you need to engage into change management. You need to communicate. You need to start small. You just need one agency to start with to share movement. It's a topic that goes beyond logistics, so you need also to involve as many stakeholders as possible. May it be the national, the regional, or the HQ level. You need to find the right individual to engage into that, because we are really like reinventing the way we operate, and we have all a very old reflex of oh, it's my project, so it's my budget, so it's my car, so I'm not sharing, and fighting against that takes some time and energy. Reluctance to change is probably the biggest challenge that you will have to face. Of course, triggering involvement of other agencies is important. I insist on one point: you can start small. Try to find just another agency on which you will start sharing just a few movements on one route. This is how everything starts. You don't need to have like a massive objective of sharing all your movement within the next 6 months. Start small, and that contributes to build the confidence of colleagues, of other agencies, and most of agencies are also sometimes wait and see when they identify that things are working between just two agencies. They also pay more attention. They are more willing to engage. On the topic of accountability and security, many times it's the barrier placed by agencies or individual. Like, okay, how do we start sharing? Because I have my budget, I have my car finance on my budget. It's an issue. I don't want to justify that to my donors. Well, the fact is that the donors are actively promoting such practice because, of course, the gain of efficiency that are the outcome of such projects are funds that don't need to be allocated to support services, but can be allocated for beneficiaries. And may we be working for logistics department, our goal above all should be to better attend the beneficiaries of our organizations. And there are many ways of also gaining acceptance on the safety and security by involving security focal points. Again, reducing the number of vehicles on the road allows to reduce mechanically the number of accidents. So the safety and the security focal point should have an interest into that. Sorry. Another challenge and mitigation is, of course, the topic of change of fleet management. So here, what I want to say that I've mentioned that the change management is the biggest challenge, of course, because we have to change the habits of the project coordinators, of the passengers, but it's also a change for us as logisticians or fleet managers. We need to start learning how to collaborate with other agencies, assume that a vehicle is, of course, potentially belonging to your organization, but is also serving the purpose of another organization. And you need to be very self-critical into that. Into accepting that we need also to face the learning curve, no, of operating differently. And also potentially that might affect, the location or allocation of your vehicles, because if you have more journeys that are made on ride sharing and used with another agency vehicle, potentially you don't need anymore one car, or you reallocate it to another location. And that's very important to take into account, not to just piling solutions, but allowing the vehicle sharing to actually really decrease the size of your fleet and the number of kilometers that you are driving overall. One last very important point, and I want to insist on that, the importance of providing a safe place wherever you're based in your organization. May you be at HQ, at regional, or at local level, you need to provide and to create this safe place to start and to try vehicle sharing. Again, we are learning. Our sector has been evolving for many years with the approach of fleet management. We are moving towards more mobility management, and this transition involves that we create a space where people can test, can try, can fail, and promote, but overall promote the action and engage into action. So we are not just remaining static. I have covered most of the point. Oh, you can't hear me?
No, we
Have I
could.
been?
I
Okay,
think there
okay.
was I think there was an individual that was having an issue, but uh, or at least I could hear you all the time.
Okay, okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm reassured. I just had the impression that I've been talking on my own for a while. If you have any questions or comments, please put them on the chat. Yes, I saw someone raise its hand, and now I'm scrolling the chat. So we have. Yes, I will share the links of the material right away, as asked by Carl. Ah, no, yeah, it's done. Thank you. Could you please explain more about access inequality? I'm going back to the basic, and I'm happy to have this question because it's very important that we understand what's the problem. Access inequality in terms of transport is that basically the motorized vehicle system is more and more popular and used, but still we have a big part of the population that on a daily basis is going to work or doing its day-to-day errands by walking or not having access to mobility or motorized mobility. And I'm pretty sure that you have concrete examples within the country or even offices where you operate. You have some colleagues that access day-to-day potentially using their private cars. Some others that are down the pay grade are using an informal transport, and you have even downer the pay grade, some people that are walking kilometers and kilometers on a daily basis to access the office, despite the fact that they might be working for an international organization. And I'm pretty sure you have concrete example of that. So that's just a basic illustration of how the motorized system is also not guaranteeing very equal access to mobility. Cebu, you are French speaking, but you can put your question in French, and I can, as you have noticed, I could translate if need be. So I have answered to the question of Anupana. Cebu, you can put your question in French. Yes, the Ecolog, Faith is asking about the ecologistics policy. It's available, it's online, you can Google it. And it's making clear statement promoting the pooling and the sharing of resources. So that's a good illustration of how we are getting aligned with such practices with the donors. And as a matter of fact, in the case of Lebanon, Central Africa, and Iraq, the project have been supported in sequence by the USAID and by ECHO. Also the demonstration that donors are supporting and giving us a space to try. I see someone has the hand raised. Please go ahead. I don't know if I'm able to unmute you. In the meanwhile, I have a question. Do you have a common platform to book trips in Lebanon? Yes, we do. But be ready, because it's maybe not what you expect. Basically, also an illustration of how you can start very basically. We have a common folder on a SharePoint that is actually hosted by one of the agencies. You can recognize the logo. It's actually ACF that is holding this SharePoint. It's an Excel file on which, on a daily, weekly basis, fleet managers are going to acknowledge their movement plan. And then we have one of our colleagues that is vehicle sharing officer that is working half-time, that is actively looking into the sharing opportunities and make sure that the movement are happening, maybe using a dedicating vehicle, a minivan, on routes where we have most of the movement, or using the cars that are belonging to the organization. So both templates are also available on the platform. You can use them, and that's those templates that we actually use after for the cost sharing matrix and to capture the data. Yes, good comment from Grace regarding the different standards of the different organization. You will find in the shared materials online that we have also like this benchmarking. When you start operation between agencies to try to identify what is done in common or what is different. You would be surprised that despite you have a different logo and you think you have different practices, in fact, we are mainly all doing the same thing. We are following very global standards, and you will be surprised at the extent to which we have almost equal practices in terms of fleet management. So we have a common ground to actually share, despite our standard operating procedures have a different logo or are organized differently. If you identify issues, it's also an opportunity to have the discussion and to solve that. And we have a final comment, the low-hanging fruit on pickup at airport. Yes, this is what is happening actually in Central Africa, in Birao, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, operating with the same offices, sharing informally to get to and from. Excellent. Okay, very interesting comments. I see that the clock is there. I want to thank you. You will have access to those materials. Of course, Rose has shared the potential, yes, the little feature to share your feedback on the webinar. And for your information, we will also having one session during the Fleet Forum conference on the 25th and 26th of June. I'm pretty sure most of you are already registered, but we will have also like a dedicated session on the vehicle sharing with the fleet managers of the Lebanon operation. So looking forward seeing you next time there. In the meanwhile, don't hesitate to reach out or to the colleagues that I have mentioned if you wish to start and access those materials online. But my conclusion is really, please engage into action. This is what is needed. We need small steps. We need action to have those practices accelerated, and you are instrumental in making those changes. So thank you very much, and see you next time, I hope, in a shared ride. Thank you very much to all. See you soon. Bye-bye.